Welcome to the College Football Bros, the podcast with three biased co-hosts. And now, here are your hosts, Michael, Ryan, and Trey Newman.
Welcome to the College Football Bros podcast. I am Michael Newman, and I'm joined by the brother that's going to try to talk you into Nebraska.
Yeah, that's me, Ryan Newman.
And by the other brother, who's going to keep it real.
I will keep it real. That's me, Trey Newman. But yes, Ryan is always, when it comes down to it, he ends up being the optimist.
Try to be.
All right. Big Ten, of course, is coming back the weekend of October 24th. But before we start breaking down the conference, be sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at CFB Bros. Subscribe on YouTube for video episodes. Support us on Patreon to get bonus episodes. And you can also support us by checking out our sponsor, Ryan.
Yes, please do. Our sponsor is MyBookie.ag. So between the NFL, college football, MLB playoffs, there's no shortage of games to watch right now. And with thousands of lines available on all your favorite sports and events, they even have politics thrown in there. You can turn your game day into payday with MyBookie. Maybe you're the type of guy who likes to bet big favorites. Consider putting some of those favorites into a parlay and just get a much bigger payout. So makes those games more fun, a little more meaningful. So go to sign up at MyBookie, and when you do, use our promo code CFBROS to get your match dollar for dollar on your first deposit up to $1,000. So if you put in 1,000, they'll give you 1,000. So nice little help there to get a head start on your winning season. They have promotional offers all the time. They have free bets, boosted odds. It's been a good experience for the bros so far on MyBookie. So once again, use the promo code CFBROS.
All right, let's move on to our first segment here for the Big Ten, and it is Call Me Crazy. So Trey, what is your bold proclamation here?
Call me crazy, but I think Purdue has the best receiving core in the Big Ten. And I say this not necessarily looking at like NFL draft prospects, but I'm talking about when you factor in the players on their roster that fit each team's scheme. You know, you look at Purdue. They got Rondale Moore, of course, coming back. 2 years ago, he was the most electric player in college football. 114 receptions. He also ran for over 200 yards. Just such a dynamic and fun player to watch. And then you had last year when Moore was out, kind of ended up probably being a blessing going into this year because David Bell emerged and he had 86 receptions, over 1,000 yards. And Purdue was decimated by injuries. They weren't even that good of a team, but Braum has a way of making that offense always look good. So you get two stud receivers at full strength coming into this season. That's a tough 1-2 duo compared to the other Big Ten teams.
Yeah, that's why I'm going to say you're not crazy. I mean, obviously Ohio State, I think, is the main competitor and maybe who most people would choose. You got Chris Olave. He's great. Garrett Wilson had a really good freshman year last year. He should, see an uptick in production. They've got an amazing true freshman class coming in. So the depth there is almost certainly better, I would say. So it's close, but I like that 1-2 punch, Rondale Moore and David Bell. So I might side with you.
Yeah, I don't think you're crazy to think that. You also could toss in Ahmad Anderson for Purdue, who's got a good round of receptions coming back in. And then they did just lose a guy for Jackson Anthrop. I think he's about out for several weeks. He had solid receiver for them, but you're not crazy. I think they have three, solid players, two really good ones, and then Anderson's good as well. But I would go Ohio State, though, would be my pick if I had to say which one. I think their overall talent level maybe just a little higher on those sides. Those guys are big time specimens. I mean, Olave is legit. Garrett Wilson, I think, is awesome as well. And then Michael mentioned these true freshmen that are coming in. So I think they're going to be overall a little deeper, and they're just a little bit more, I guess, physically gifted in a way.
Okay.
They're more dominant.
All right.
It's a wide receiver deep.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, a wide receiver deep conference. Like, there's a lot of good players.
There are.
Yeah, for sure. Indiana, Whop Fillier. Come on.
Indiana. Minnesota's got Bateman. Yeah,
Yeah.
Amir Smith for
Yeah, Amir Smith-Marset,
Wandale
Iowa.
Robinson, Nebraska.
Brandon Smith at Iowa as well. Let's
Yeah.
just keep naming them all. Let's do spoilers.
Yeah, we can just
here.
name them all. We'll get to them throughout the episode.
Exactly.
Bo Melton,
Okay.
Rutgers.
No, stop, Ryan.
Oh,
Call me crazy, but I think that Indiana's loss of offensive coordinator Kalen DeBoer is the most impactful coaching change in the conference. And I'm including head coaches there. I just think, I mean, when you look back at what he did at Fresno State, their offense was 127th in SP Plus when he took over as coordinator. By year 2, he had them 37th. And the year before he got to Indiana, they were 55th. And last year, they were 22nd. So, you know, with that Indiana offense bringing back a ton of good pieces, under DeBoer, I would have been confident that they'd take another step forward and be a potential, you know, top 15 type offense. With Mike Sanford coming in a weird offseason, I'm not so sure.
I agree. Yeah, well, I guess I just saying you're.
So
I
I'm
don't
not
think you're
crazy.
crazy then. Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't think you're crazy. I think DeBoer is a loss. Their yards per play, I know this doesn't necessarily sound like a whole lot, but their yards per play went from 5.5 to 6 when he came in last year. Like a full half a yard. I mean, that just adds up if you think about how many plays you do in a game, whatever, 70 to 80-ish type of plays. I mean, that's on average almost 40 yards a game that they increase. That's a big jump. So I did just really think that this is a big loss because Indiana, that was kind of one of the things that was, obviously holding them back, consistency on offense. And I mean, if they can get it this year, I don't know. We'll see. But I just think DeBoer was a huge reason for that. And who'd you say the new OC was, Mike, again?
Mike Sanford coming in, former Western Kentucky head coach.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, in Western Kentucky hasn't looked that great recently, but that's a different story. I don't think you're crazy though. There was just a clear dramatic improvement, like you guys have touched on, with him as the OC. There was one guy I did think about in terms of having an impact this year, and it might be just by default because of how bad they were last year, but Mike Vajakin, he was hired at Northwestern to kind of help revitalize anything with that offense. So it really shouldn't take much to improve that offense there. So, I mean, it could be just a case though of, putting lipstick on a pig, and they just are bad. They just are what they are. But no, I don't think you're crazy.
I mean, he was BC's offensive coordinator right before, I think.
Yeah, and then he was with Butch Jones at Tennessee, Central Michigan, Cincinnati, whatnot before that.
Mm-hmm. We'll see.
All right.
But it's the first time that Pat Fitzgerald's made a change at that. I think he had the same offensive coordinator for like a decade.
Yeah, I think even longer. But he was due for a change. They were never really even great, but I guess good enough to fit his system. All right, so mine. Call me crazy, but I could see 6 teams winning the Big Ten West. I think it is the most balanced division in the country. When you take a look at the teams that you got, I mean, the bottom team at this point, 2 bottom teams are probably people agree with, are Illinois and Northwestern. Well, Illinois went bowling last year, has a decent amount of production coming back, senior quarterback. Northwestern 2 years ago was in the conference title game and put up a good fight. So they were not that far removed from that. And they also have a ton of returning production. And if they can get any semblance of an offense, their defense, of course, is going to be good. And Pat Fitzgerald is the king of winning close games. So they can sneak out a couple close ones. Nebraska, who knows? Maybe they could put it together. The offense might take a jump. Who knows? We'll get to that later. But I just think that there's so much balance in this division. Each team really believes that they're going to be a lot better and good. Like there's no team that's just like you look at, like, go to the East. There's no Rutgers. There's no really Marylands of this division. Like they're all competitive. So, yeah.
I see where you're going, and I agree it's balanced, and it's going to be a very competitive division, but I think you're a little crazy. I would be borderline shocked if a Northwestern or Illinois or Purdue, maybe not. And I guess even
was the one team that I would say can't. They'd be
but even like Nebraska, you look at their schedule, like they're just right, but they're behind the 8 ball like immediately. I'd just be. I mean, if Nebraska had like a simple schedule, there is some upside with them. I'm not saying they're going to do it, but there would be some upside. And I think you might be underselling a little bit how good potentially Wisconsin or even Minnesota are. I think they would be favored pretty good amount over most of these West teams. But I do agree as a whole, they're more balanced than the East and compared to most divisions in the country.
Yeah, if you're including G5 conferences, when you're saying it's the most balanced division in the country, then I think you're crazy. I'm sure the MAC always seems to be just kind of
Power 5 here.
Everyone's
Sorry.
the same. Yeah, Power 5, then sure. I don't think that's crazy. Although, like Trey, I do think Wisconsin's a deserving favorite here. But with Jack Cohn going down for, I'm not sure we know exactly how long yet, but it seems like some time.
Jonathan Taylor gone, Quintez Cephas.
That potentially brings them down closer to the Minnesota and Iowa group, and high on Purdue this year. So yeah, I mean it's pretty competitive.
Yeah, I should have probably made Nebraska my 7th team with the schedule.
No,
not really.
Ah, man, brutal.
Yeah. Okay, let's get into the Big Ten East though, and who are we going to start? Who's number 1 in the Big Ten East? Who do you think, Ryan?
Rutgers. Oh, we're going from the other direction. Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah, number 1 here. We got Ohio State. They're over/under set at 8.5, and the under is the slight favorite there. So, what do you think, Trey? What do you got on the Buckeyes this year?
Well, first, I'm just going to kind of break them down. The offense should be downright scary. I mean, I know they lose J.K. Dobbins at running back, but they bring back Master Teague. They get Oklahoma transfer Trey Sermon. Teague's kind of battling back from an Achilles injury, so it's something to watch. But they also lose KJ Hill, who I didn't even realize he was the school's all-time leading receiver. They've been awful pass-heavy lately. But they still bring back Big Play Olave. I don't know if that's been trademarked, but I think it should be Big Play Olave. The offensive line graded out to be one of the best in the country. And then, of course, how can you not mention Justin Fields? Like, he had a ridiculous year last year. He had 51 total touchdowns, only 3 picks. It'll be year 2 in Ryan Day's offense.
2 of those came in the playoffs, so
yeah, they did. He's not necessarily going to match that stat line, but he's going to be, you would think, a front runner for the Heisman most of the season. The big concern, though, if you want to have a concern, is the defense. How much will it regress? They lost so much talent to the NFL. Chase Young, of course, is the big loss on the D line, but then they lost Okudah and Arnett in the back half. But they've been able to prove recently that through the strength in their recruiting, they've been able to kind of replenish the talent without having too much of a hiccup. But they still did lose a good amount, so it's something to watch. Overall, I'm going to take the over 8.5. I'm expecting perfection. Their schedule is one of the softest in the Big Ten. If they beat Ohio State if they beat Penn State in week 2, I think you could literally make the case that Fields could almost sit out the entire season until the Michigan game, and they'd still be unbeaten. Like that, they're so far ahead of the East. Besides
you're
Penn
right.
State right now, like their schedule sets up real nice.
They could go undefeated even without Justin Fields. Like,
yeah, maybe
they could beat Penn State without Fields. I mean,
it'd be harder,
much harder, but
they could.
They definitely could.
Yeah.
I wonder what the line would be on that game.
If there was no Justin Fields and you went with Gunnar Hoke.
Yeah.
Well, what's the line just anyway? Ohio State at Penn State is Ohio State like a?
I'm guessing around a touchdown.
Yeah, I was going to say 6.5.
So Fields, would he make a touchdown difference?
Yeah, whatever.
It'd be close to pick him, I think.
It'd be close. Yeah.
Anyway, but I just, for me, this has just been a theme with Clemson throughout the last couple of years. It hasn't worked out, and I think even with Ohio State, when a team is lined like this, where all they have to do is lose one game, I'm just typically going to go under. The only time I'll go over is if I just see like no weakness on the team or no concerns, at least. I don't want to say weakness. And with the offense you mentioned, there isn't a concern. There's no weakness there. They're fine. Defensively, you brought up at least question marks. There's guys leaving. So, of course, they're going to replace them with 4 and 5 stars. And on the D-line, I'm sure, Zach Harrison could be that next in line with the Bosas and Chase Young. But he's got to prove it. He's got to do it.
Already has.
Yeah, I mean, he's looked impressive. So,
pretty darn good last year.
That's true. And there's other guys that can break out in the secondary. Of course, a lot of pieces gone, like you mentioned. Also, Jordan Fuller at safety's out, but they just seem to churn out DBs. So, 9-0 is obviously very possible, but you got to have Penn State. You got potentially Wisconsin in the conference championship.
Yeah.
And then who knows? They've lost games that they shouldn't have in the past. So I'll go under.
Oh, yeah. They've gotten blown out in games they shouldn't have.
Right. Yeah.
I'm gonna go over though. I'm kind of with you normally. I would kind of am like, hey, if all they have to do is lose one, then yeah, I'm gonna take the under. But this team is just too good in my eyes, really, for them to slip up. I think they're so far ahead. I even think they're really far ahead of Penn State, especially when you take away Penn State's best defensive player. That's gonna bite. I'm not really that concerned about the defense. I think the defense is going to be fantastic. It might be slightly worse than last year, but they were still so far ahead of everybody already. It's not going to matter. I think Zach Harrison is going to be Chase Young 2.0. Like he's going to have a huge impact. Not quite as dominant, but he's a stud. Sean Wade's obviously opted back in, so he's bringing some stability to the secondary.
Yeah,
they're stacked. They are so stacked. The offense can do anything they want pretty much against anybody. I got to go over.
That's fair. I mean, they pretty much killed everybody last year. I know Wisconsin, I guess, getting a little bit of a scare, but yeah. Okay. We're still on tier 1 here. Technically, we had to fit them into 4 tiers, but
yeah,
we got our second team, Penn State. Their over/under is set at 7, with the under being slightly favored. So, Michael, which way you headed with the Nittany Lions?
Well, I think I'm gonna lean under. I mean, on offense, the running game should be good. Great group of running backs led by Journey Brown. You got 4 starters back in the O-line, so you can kind of lean on that. Passing game, I mean, it was fine last year, but in order to be a playoff level, beat Ohio State level, I think Sean Clifford needs to take a step forward this year. And he's got Kirk Shiraka, new offensive coordinator, coming in from Minnesota to help him out. And I think the roster kind of fits what Shiraka likes to do. He likes to run the ball, maybe take some shots with play action. But, and obviously he's got Pat Freiermuth at tight end. That's a great weapon. Receiving core, though, a little bit questionable. You got Jahan Dotson, but someone else needs to step up. So that's something to watch out for. And then defensively, Ryan, you brought it up. The loss of Micah Parsons is huge. Still going to be a good defense. There's tons of pieces on the front 7. You got Shaka Smart.
Wow.
You'll see. I bring up Shaka Smart later, oddly, so that's why he's in my
weird.
My
that
brain.
Is very weird.
I know, but Shaka Tony, rushing the passer. Secondary has some experience, needs to get better. They gave up a lot of big plays last year. Overall, obviously, very good team. I think 7-2 is most likely, but I'm just going to lean under because it's going to take 8-1 to beat me. And when you've got Ohio State on the schedule, you got at Michigan, even at Indiana is tricky. So. And then playing a good team likely from the West. So that's why I'm leaning under.
Yeah, I hear you. I'm going to disagree, and I'm going to go over on Penn State. You get plus money here on the over. So if they put things together, you can get a good payday. I think the offense should be even better than last year. I think Clifford will, going into a second year as a starter, will maybe take a little bit of a jump, especially with maybe a little less. I don't want to say less responsibility, but maybe they'll have, with such a great ground game that they should have coming back, I think maybe even less on his shoulders than he would have to. 4 returning starters on the line, but they even have a 5th guy who's got starting experience. So they have no issues.
Coy Cronk coming in from Indiana. Yeah, it's a big grad transfer.
Wait.
I'm thinking of. I'm sorry. I'm
so he went to Iowa. Chuck.
Iowa. Yeah. My bad.
Another good offensive line.
It's like, did he transfer again? And I didn't know.
No. I knew there's an in-conference transfer. Wrong team.
There's too many good offensive lines in the Big Ten.
Who's the transfer that Penn State got?
I don't think it was a transfer. I think it was just a guy that had the starting experience. I can't remember who it was.
Transfer.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I misheard.
Yeah. I was like, I don't know of anybody.
My bad.
Look at here, Mike. No. So I think with the really good ground game, okay, I'll say Ohio State. Yes, they'll probably lose that game, and the depth that they have at the running back position. Also, Noah Cain is a great player. And I think people are a little concerned about the passing game, of course. Well, Dodson, Freiermuth are 2 solid options, and I think we'll see Journey Brown maybe a little bit more involved, in the passing game as well. So I like this team. I like their defense. I know it took a huge hit with Parsons, but they still got a lot of great players. Antonio Shelton's good. Their linebacker, Ellis Brooks played a ton the last couple of years. Brandon Smith, he was a huge recruit. Could be kind of their breakout player at linebacker. I just think that they got enough talent on that defense where, kind of like we're seeing with, saw early in the year with Pitt, where they lost Jalen Twyman. They were still super good around him. I think it's kind of a similar thing with Penn State. It's not just because of one guy. That's a very, very good group. So I'll take the chances with the over there.
How about Peyton Ramsey transferring in from Indiana? That's a big
Oh yeah, that's
a big one. Yeah,
that's huge.
Oof,
yeah, that'll.
man.
Oh my gosh, no, but Ryan, I like your last point about Micah Parsons, because obviously it's not a good loss to have. He's probably your best defensive player. He's outstanding, but he is only one guy. It's not like he made the entire defense. I mean, he's obviously a key part. I'm not diminishing that.
Matos, but that's okay.
Yeah. But they're still a very solid defense. And then on the offensive side, Sean Clifford, he doesn't get a ton of love nationally, and it does hurt losing a guy like KJ Hamler, who was a weapon for them. But you guys touched on the receivers that he still does have, and tight ends. And the offensive line doesn't have many excuses to fall. So I think he can not like make this giant leap, but at least be consistent enough for them to be successful. So I'm also going over 7 wins. I think they're really balanced on offense and defense. And to me, it just seems difficult for them to lose 3 games for this to go under.
Okay. Moving on to tier 2 here in the Big Ten East, we've got Michigan. They're our 3rd team. Their over-under is set at 5.5. And of course, we didn't mention it, but every team in the Big Ten playing an 8-game season with a 9th game that's matched up with the cross division team. So if Michigan finished 3rd in the East, they're playing whoever finished 3rd in the West. And so 5.5 is over under in their 9 games. The over is -130.
Correct on Michigan here. I am going under here on Michigan. As far as the schedule, they did get a tough draw. They drew Minnesota and Wisconsin from the West. So that's
rough.
Probably the toughest 2 teams you could have dealt with at this particular point in the season. Who knows how it'll play out, but and overall, I'm not that high on this team. And I'm getting a plus money under here again. So I'm going to take that. The offense was okay last year. But I just don't see how they're going to really be any better this year. Maybe they'll even be a little worse in my eyes. We haven't seen a ton from the Joe Milton, who's going to be the guy. There maybe is a little bit of positive buzz going on around him in Ann Arbor, but we'll have to see it to believe it. In my eyes, I haven't been that impressed. And I just wasn't high in that position group last year either when McCaffrey was there. McCaffrey was not.
And Patterson.
Yeah, I mean, Patterson was very average for Michigan, of course, as well, too. And the offensive line returns just Jalen Mayfield, so they don't have a ton of experience coming back on the O-line. Nico Collins is
as of recording, he's
as of now, he's
back,
not sure. So I mean, if you take out him too, you're just left with like Ronnie Bell. It's not looking great on offense.
That would be a big loss. Nico Collins.
That would be a huge loss. So I just don't know. I mean, their ground game could be maybe okay. You got Charbonnet and Haskins, but I just, they weren't home run hitters or anything so special. So not that high on the offense. And the defense, it'll be good. It's the Don Brown. They got some good pieces for sure. They do lose some key pieces. Lavert Hill, Khalil Hudson, Jordan Glasgow, Josh O'Shea, just to name some guys. But they're always good. And Ambry Thomas is just our starting corner. He's going to stay opted out. So that's
huge. Yeah,
that's another blow. So 5 big blows to the defense right there. Still going to be good. They won't be dominant, but it'll still be good. So I could just see this team really struggling offensively and it kind of hurting the defense. They get Ohio State, Penn State, Minnesota, Wisconsin on the schedule. It's going to be tough. I'm going under here. Take plus money under.
Yeah, I can't believe it. I mean, I didn't guess I'd be saying under 5.5 wins in the Harbaugh era. But here I am. I'm going under. I've been on the Harbaugh train forever. And I'm not off the train. I'm just kind of going to wait and see what happens this year, or at least how they look. I'm not going to judge his career just off this one season, but the offense was a liability last year. And I just want to see with Josh Gaddis again, if they can improve with Milton at the helm. Like you laid out, Ryan, it's going to be an uphill battle given the offensive line, maybe Nico Collins opting out. I think Charbonnet should get better with age, just like his name sounding like wine. But it's just for them, no matter who the personnel is, it's just a matter of getting some form of consistency. They'd go 3 and out, or then they would have, some good chunk plays, but it's just a matter of developing consistent offense. And I think it's going to be tough. I mean, Don Brown's defense, I'm not too concerned. They should be just fine. That should be obviously a strength of them. But I just don't have the confidence in that offense. They have to face as of right now, 3 top 10 defenses on their schedule. So I'm going under.
Okay. I'll make the case the other way. I'll go over, even though I honestly don't feel great about it. But you guys have brought up the defense. No glaring weakness there. Got to like Aiden Hutchinson and Kwity Paye on the D-line. Cam McGrone at linebacker is kind of solid at every level.
Yeah.
And big question is the offense. I guess I would say I'm cautiously optimistic compared to expectations, because I don't think people are expecting, maybe some people are, but I think generally nationwide people aren't expecting a whole lot. But year 2 of Josh Gaddis' system, I think that's a big thing, because that was a big change for them. Milton has potential, big arm. Yeah, of course they say.
Got a big arm.
Yep. And I mean, God, I felt good about the skill talent. I felt okay about the skill talent with Nico Collins and Ronnie Bell. That kind of 1-2 punch, but not, as we record, like I said, not looking great with Nico Collins. So that hurts. You got Nick Eubanks at tight end. Deep group of running backs. Like, the skill talent is not awful. And then I trust Ed Warner with the offensive line. So even though their chance of winning the East is extremely low because of that schedule, and just because they're not as good as Penn State and Ohio State, I'll go over. I just think they got a good chance in that against the number 3 team, I think, from the West in that final game.
Yeah.
And also Harbaugh has not won fewer than 6 games in conference. Or no, only one time. Sorry. One time he's won fewer than 6 games in the Big Ten. So that's pretty good. And usually they only play 8.
Yeah.
Now he's playing 9.
Seems like it'll be his weakest team here.
Yeah, 2017, it could be. But I think it'll be better than 2017.
Fair enough.
I think that was the year that they lost everybody.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Moving on here to our second team in tier 2. We got the Indiana Hoosiers. They're over under set at 5, with the under as the heavy favorite at -185. Trey, what do you think about the Hoosiers this year?
I actually really like the Hoosiers this year, but I'm going to go under. It's just a bit tough for me seeing 6 wins at this point. Michael Penix, he has the potential to break out this season even more, but he's missed a lot of time the last couple of years with injury, and I hope that's not a theme that continues, because he is really fun to watch. And of course, they don't have Peyton Ramsey, as Michael mentioned earlier. They don't have Peyton Ramsey to come in and in relief.
Penn State.
That's right. That's right.
Almost outplay Penix. Really, Ramsey was underrated there.
I agree. But I want to see a full strength Penix, because there is a lot to like about the Hoosiers. They have Stevie Scott coming back at running back. Whop Phillier is great at receiver. One of the better tight ends, Peyton Hendershot. Like we mentioned earlier, though, and Michael made a great point, losing Kalen DeBoer might be a tough hurdle to overcome, or at least for Indiana to take the next step on offense. Defensively, recently they just lost starting corner Marcelino Ball to a torn ACL. That's kind of a bummer. But Tom Allen has much of the core of that defense back. Tywan Mullen, he needs to step up with Ball out now. Micah McFadden should be one of the better linebackers in the conference. But again, Indiana, even though for Indiana it's pretty good, it hasn't been necessarily like a top Big Ten defense. So they still need to show their teeth in order to really make some strides in the East. Like I said, I've got lots of love for the Hoosiers, but with their slate, and while also having to play out Wisconsin, I have to go under.
The Marcelino Ball that's a tough loss. I mean, he was kind of did everything. He was kind of a hybrid of 6 different positions. He was a good player.
Yeah. I mean, I like Indiana this year. Even though I was talking about Kalen DeBoer a bunch, I mean, I still think the offense will be good. I just don't know if it can be great, like maybe I thought it had the chance to be. And the defense should be better. I mean, they were 43rd in SP Plus last year. That's not bad, and they return 8 starters, so they should take a step forward too. I just think that they set this too high at 5 here, because I know the under still favored, but plus 140 is not quite enough for me to take the over, because they got to go 6-3 to beat me. And when you've got Penix as an injury risk, that's that hurts. The loss of Kalen DeBoer, like I brought up, and the schedule at Ohio State, at Wisconsin, Penn State, and Michigan. Like,
Yeah.
it's just rough times in the East there, and then adding Wisconsin, like you said. So I think 5-4 would be a really good season for them. I'm going to go under.
Yes, I am also going to go under here. Also, just because of they were 3-1 in one score Big Ten games last year, so they kind of the luck kind of fell to them last year as far as those close games. And I just agree with the schedule, but also I'm not overly high on Penix as some people are. I think he kind of took advantage of maybe some weaker teams when he was playing last year. That Ramsey took a little bit of the played more over the tougher ones. I remember pointing this out last year in a podcast we talked about. I was kind of laying out my reasons. Was hey, Penix wasn't as great as maybe people think he's been.
Okay, I mean, I really like him, but
I know you guys do.
Point about the schedule.
But scheduling made a big difference in his performance last year. And when you go up against a tougher schedule like this, 6-3, really? That's 6-3 has got to be. That is so tough for Indiana here. I mean, this is still Indiana, guys.
Hey,
I mean, come on.
Maybe it's the new Indiana. 9-win Indiana. Hey, are they going to be 9 wins this year?
Yeah, I know. Something. That would be something.
Man. Yeah.
Okay.
Give me the under there. How? Like Michael said, they set it too high. Should have been like 4.5. Should have been the line there.
Well, they added Coy Cronk as a transfer at tackle.
Oh my gosh, how could you? And Peyton Ramsey actually transferred from Indiana to Indiana.
That's amazing.
It's incredible. Think about that.
Same with Coy Cronk. He did the same thing. Yeah. All right. Anyway.
All right. Moving on
Such
to
an idiot.
Moving on to our third tier. Our fifth team in the Big Ten East is Michigan State. Their over-under is set at 2.5, with the over being favored. Michael, lead us off.
All right. Well, Mel Kiper comes in.
Mel Kiper's
wow. That'd be something. I mean, you want a talent evaluator. Bring in Mel Kiper.
That's true.
Mel Tucker is coming in as head coach. He came from Colorado. Was there for 1 year. Had a fine year. At least recruiting, he was very good. So there's hope for the future. And I'm going to start here with 2020 with the defense, because let's just start with the positive. That was not the problem last year, right? They were 13th in SP Plus. Very good. I think they're going to take a step back this year. They did lose a ton. They lost 3 D linemen to the NFL, including Kenny Willekes, who was an absolute beast. But they've still got the backups, got a lot of playing time, a lot of snaps. So I still think it should be fine. And just overall, the front seven, I mean, you got Antoine Simmons, their leading tackler, back at linebacker. Front seven should be solid. Secondary is a concern because they weren't great last year, and there's only one starter back. So that's why I think the defense overall will take a step back. Now, the offense was very, very bad last year, but that means there's almost nowhere to go but up. So they've got a quarterback battle. You got Rocky Lombardi, who I think Michigan State fans would not like to win the job. We've seen a lot of him, and it hasn't been great. So you've got Theo Day, the sophomore, who was a decent recruit, and then you've got the young gun, the redshirt freshman Peyton Thorne. I guess you're hoping it's one of those guys. Whoever it is behind an O-line that's just been really bad the last few years, and injuries haven't helped, of course. But they've got, I think they have 4 starters coming back, or they have a lot coming back on that O-line. So again, hopefully it can only get better. Skill talent is decent. Elijah Collins at running back, promising as a freshman. I really like Jaden Reed. I think he could be a big breakout player at receiver. He sat out last year after transferring from Western Michigan. He was a freshman All-American there. So, some signs to think that they might be a little better. So I will go over. I think they can find 3 wins, especially when you start game 1. You got Rutgers. So good chance for a win there.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think any of the games that they play are like, even Rutgers, I don't think that's going to be like an easy win for them or anything. But, you got Rutgers, you get Northwestern. They also get Maryland. So they get Rutgers and Maryland from the East. Well, of course, they're in the East, but they have those weaker teams.
What an idiot, Ryan. You're so dumb.
I was thinking of like legends and leaders here. Where, remember that? Where Michigan State was on our side. Nebraska.
Had all the M's in Iowa.
Yeah, M's in Iowa. Yeah, exactly. So I'm flashing back to that. But I think they can find 3 wins. I just mainly because of the defense. I know they don't return a ton of starters, like you said, Mike, but they still have guys that have played a ton of football and are good. Like
Mhm.
Jacob Panashuk, he decided to opt back in. He was planning to sit out. He's a solid player at defensive end. I mean, we've seen a lot of Naquan Jones at defensive tackle. He should probably have a breakout year, even though he's already played a lot. I think he'll be good up the middle. Drew Beasley, Jacob Slade. I mean, their D line is going to be solid. I mean, their D line's been very, very good. Remember, and it's not just all of a sudden going to tank. They still got guys there. And kind of the same thing with the secondary, like Shakur Brown, Noah Harvey. They aren't technically returning starters, but they played a lot last year on a good defense. So I have faith that, with
Mel
as
Tucker.
much, Mel Tucker.
Oh.
Thank you. No, you're right, Mel Tucker. I was searching for his name.
Okay. I'm not. Why are you looking at me like that?
I thought you were like, oh, sorry, Ryan. No. Yeah, I like it. I just think that they're going to be fine. I mean, the offense doesn't have to be amazing for them to find 3 wins. So as long as they improve a little bit, defense will still be good. This team can win 3.
Clean sweep. We're all going over. On the West side, they only drew Iowa and Northwestern, not the toughest slate. And considering that they'll probably finish in the back half of the East, they're going to get to play one of the bottom players in the West in their bonus game. And I just think overall for Michigan State, there's finally some new enthusiasm in the program. It was becoming a bit stale. The end of the D'Antonio era was just becoming too rocky, and there wasn't much hope. It just really fell fast.
Rocky Lombardi.
Yeah, I thought about that. But it's amazing how fast it kind of fell. The offense.
Yeah, D'Antonio was a real thorn in their side for that last year.
Wow.
But it's a new day. All right.
Wow.
You went full circle there. You went full circle. Well done. The offense, you guys touched on it. SP Plus is not confident at all. Still in the hundreds as far as
what a
ranked
nerd.
offense.
Doesn't know what
I read a stat that over the last 2 years, they only had 7 pass plays that were for longer than 40 or more yards. So in like 24, 25 games or however many, they had 7 plays that resulted in more than 40 yards in passing.
Not good.
But you said Jalen Reed, I like him. I actually had him on my fantasy team, I think, a couple years ago. Jalen Naylor could make some plays. But it's time for some new blood in the program, and there's some hope in East Lansing.
Yeah, and it's a year 0 kind of for Mel Tucker for sure. He came in late and not exactly getting handed a full cupboard. So
nope, nothing to lose.
He's a good recruiter, and he'll, I think, make the team better in the next couple of years. Let's go to Tier 4 now. And the first team on Tier 4 is Maryland. So they're our 6th team in the Big Ten East. Their over-under is set at 2, but the over is a -160 favorite. So what do you think, Ryan?
Yeah, this is a tough one to pick for me here. I think the win total set right as far as I think 2 is probably their most likely outcome. And I would maybe even say 3 is a little bit more likely than 1, if we're talking about going out here. So, but I'm going to take the plus money under. Just not high on them for a lot of reasons. First is because they were very bad last year. That's not good. And they don't have a ton of production coming back. They've lost some key pieces as far as opt-outs as well. Josh Jackson, of course, who was, maybe in line to start at quarterback. Wasn't great, but dude,
I'm more. I think Maryland fans too are probably more excited about, you got Talia Tungavaloa, of course, Tua's little brother, and Lance Lejeune, who was also a 4-star recruit. So, so exciting options.
But besides Josh Jackson, also their starting defensive tackle Olu Oluwatimi, he's out. Starting offensive lineman Austin Fartain, he's out. Opt out. So those are, and a couple of backups on defense also opting out. So depth is going to be a concern. Some of those big key pieces are a concern. So they're most likely also at running back. They're going to be trotting out a couple of true freshmen after Javon Leake and Anthony McFarland both exhausted their eligibility. So, that running game was probably kind of their strength with those guys. I just don't see that happening this year. So I think that's a huge loss. And their defense, it's terrible. They were the worst in the conference, at least according to total yards. And they just returned a couple starters in the front 7. They really need Shaq Smith to, he kind of battled some injuries last year. He really needs to be healthy, kind of take ownership of that defense. Because if he kind of struggles like he did last year, it's going to be, there's just no chance for this team. The secondary, it could end up being all right. They got some decent sophomore play. Nick Cross at safety and Deontay Banks at corner. So, those guys could be decent, but overall, this is just not a good team, and I'm going to take that plus money under.
I'm also going to go under in it, but I was just thinking back to last year, the beginning of last year. Remember they started 2-0 and their offense was just setting the world on fire.
Howard
and you
and
kind of thought, I know, but you still,
you thought Syracuse was good.
Yeah, you thought Syracuse was all right.
And even a bad Syracuse, like they put up so many points, and you're like, wow, okay, like even if they don't have a defense, they're going to be competitive. And then the rest of the season was literally the complete opposite. It was just a train wreck.
Maybe what Mississippi State's about to do this year.
Yeah,
kind of.
I mean, they were just horrendous. They ended up finishing 1-8 in the conference. They were getting destroyed left and right. It's just looking at this year's schedule. It's again a tough schedule, especially to break in a new quarterback. Not a ton of help around him. Whoever ends up getting the nod. I personally kind of feel like I'm missing something with the over being favored. I'm just having a hard time finding 3 wins on the schedule. And I look at it, really, I think they'd only be favored in one game against Rutgers. Otherwise, there'd be.
Heck, Nebraska beat that team 50-7 last year.
Yeah, I mean, I think
it was a joke.
I think the end of the year they almost kind of threw in the towel. So I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt going into this new year, but still, it's tough.
Yeah, I mean, as a Maryland fan, I would be excited about the offense, just not necessarily thinking that they're going to be good, but just excited to see some of the pieces. Like I mentioned, the quarterbacks, and they got a 5-star true freshman wide receiver, Raheem Jarrett. And like you mentioned, Ryan, they might be playing some true freshmen at running back. Penny Boone is supposed to be a beast. So we'll see if any of those guys break out. And defensively, though, I'm not super confident. I don't think the front seven is going to help out that secondary. Losing their best pass rusher, Keandre Jones, the transfer from Ohio State, is huge. I think 2-8 is most likely, but I agree with you guys. I'm going to take the plus money. Oh, sorry, 2-7. Ooh, that makes me rethink it here. 2-8 is very unlikely. 2-7 is most likely. But Mike Loxley, 6-40 as a head coach in his career.
Dude,
so
that's another.
But he can recruit.
Yeah.
No, that's what everyone says, and I think he can. That's so true, far in this region, this is his home. He might be able to. Can he coach him up?
We'll see. Okay. Let's get to the last team here.
Yes. Rutgers over-under is set at 2. The under is the massive favorite at -200. Trey, what do you think of this new look Rutgers squad?
I think that, the 2 and the way it's set up, I got to go under. If it was 1.5, I might have entertained the over. They didn't win a conference game last year. Now they're going to have to win 3 to beat me. I'm just not seeing it. But honestly, if they can go 2-7, might not be that bad.
2-8,
possibly
2-8.
Yeah, that's right. Of course. How could I forget the phantom 10th game? But honestly, it could be encouraging if they are able to find 2 wins. It's definitely, we know it's not going to happen overnight for Greg Schiano, the new coach, especially in the Big Ten. They only averaged 5.7 points per game in conference last year. So it's
cow. Oh my God. That's bad.
It's going to be a process.
Wow.
And the quarterback battle, it's been just that. It's been a battle. Schiano's playing it close to the vest. He's even entertaining a 2-quarterback system. You got Johnny Langen and Art Sikowski, of course, who played last year. Noah Vedral, the transfer from Nebraska, and maybe even sophomore Cole Snyder. Some people are hoping it might be Vedral. We'll see. No matter who it is, there aren't many weapons, and it should be and probably will be one of the worst offenses in the conference. But you just want to show something in the new system. And Schiano's known for defense, and even though they ranked last in the Big Ten last year, they do bring back some 8 starters. I'm expecting the defense to at least have more of a pulse this year and more of an identity and some enthusiasm there. And then their schedule, if there is anything positive there, they only draw Illinois and Purdue from the West, so that's about as good as it can get. But I don't see them winning 3 games to beat me, so I got to stay under.
Yeah, I'm excited about the future with Schiano. He's recruiting pretty well, much better than they have been. So
yep,
I think there's definitely hope. And again, this is like Mel Tucker at Michigan State. Definitely you get a year zero. You might get 2 year zeros if this might be your double for Schiano. But yeah, the defense though is not terrible, especially with everything they have coming back. Getting some transfers from Central Florida, Boston College, Michigan, Ohio State. I think that's a good way. It's kind of what Illinois did the last couple of years to
took them from USC.
Yeah, they took them from SC. That's right, to make them better last year. So I think that's a good tactic until they can get those high schoolers coached up. The offense, yeah, it's going to be terrible again. But I love the hire of Sean Gleason. I love that hire. He's going to have more freedom now than he did at Oklahoma State, where you have to run that Gundy system. I think that's why he left, right? Like,
yeah,
it's
that's why all those OCs leave.
Yeah, it's a step down to go to Rutgers, but he's going to really be able to call his offense. So yeah, there's some hope for the future, but I'm going under. Yeah, 3-6 would be a minor miracle.
Okay, well, I think miracles can happen. All right, so
you're getting plus 150.
I'm getting plus 150. That's the thing.
Ryan
I don't want to bet a minus
odds.
200. Minus 200. It's a little bit too much of a minus for me there. So I am going to take the over here and just say, hey, who knows? Who knows, man? They could get 3. This is they competed in some games last year. I like Sean Gleason. I do think he'll rejuvenate that offense a little bit. They have a lot of returning starters coming back, 15 overall. Just the renewed energy. Trey brought up the energy before from other teams. That could just be another factor. Like, things were just stale and getting ugly. Now it's like, okay, this is, there's some positive momentum going on. That can just that makes a difference. Whoever the QB will be, it's going to be better than last year. Same guys return, plus you're getting coached up, you're older, more experience. Bo Melton is a nice wide receiver. He is solid. He just didn't have many people that could get him the ball quite very well, but he is a pretty good wide receiver. They also got a transfer from Wisconsin, Aaron Cruikshank, who played a lot at Wisconsin when he was there and actually was pretty solid. So
good returner.
So they have a couple guys there that some nice pieces. They got a pretty solid group of running backs coming back. Isaiah Pacheco, he kind of leads the group there, but Aaron Young and Kayron Adams are also there. So they got some depth at that position. I don't know. I just think that with all the returning production, renewed energy, it is possible for them to knock off a few teams like Maryland, and said he played Illinois, right? And so Michigan State, they could beat those teams. So yeah, give me that over, baby.
Okay, I like it. Let's review these this tier of all the tiers, in the Big Ten East. So on the first tier, we had Ohio State and Penn State. I know we're going to get comments like, hey, Ohio State's on a tier of their own. It's, I guess I agree. We've only got so much room in the image, but those are the 2 contenders. Number 2, you got the second tier, Michigan and Indiana. Third tier, all by themselves, is Michigan State. And then the fourth tier is Maryland and Rutgers. So what do you think of these tiers? What are the listeners thinking? Is there any listener that's disagreeing?
Well, to me, the question is, what is more like egregious? Is putting Penn State on Ohio State's level, or having Michigan State be ahead of Maryland and Rutgers? Like, which do you think was worse or more appropriate?
So
is Michigan State further away from Maryland and Rutgers than Ohio State is further away from Penn State?
I see what you're saying. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. But
I don't know, honestly.
It's probably pretty even, I would say.
And even if people don't, the Ohio State Penn State thing, I could see a point, but I think what some people might look at and they say is the naive fan might not know, is Indiana that good? Like, and me personally, actually, like, I think there's a better chance that Michigan could potentially win the East than Indiana.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I guess I would agree. Schedule makes me question that a little bit, but yeah, Michigan has the higher upside, but man, they got screwed with the schedule.
Yes, they did.
Minnesota and Wisconsin.
Yes, they did.
Well, Nebraska fans know the feeling.
Yep, we're gonna get to that. All right, so there's grunting on a podcast. All right, let's go to the Big Ten West here, and who's number 1?
We've got the Wisconsin Badgers. Their over-under is set at 7.5, with the under actually being a pretty good size favorite. So Ryan, lead us off on the Badgers.
Yeah. So to me, the question of the spread is really asking me, will Wisconsin go undefeated in the regular season? because if they go into the Big Ten title game with a loss, they're going to be heavy underdogs against Ohio State most likely. Okay, so that would be 2, and that would knock it out. So can they go 8-0 in those first 8 games? I think it's gonna be tall order. I'm gonna say they go under. I'm gonna say they slip up. Like last year, they lost at Illinois. I mean, that was a what the heck type of game, but it can happen. So I really do think that really any team on their schedule at least has a chance to beat them, like we saw last year. So the offense, yeah, it'll be very good, but I don't think it'll be as good as it was last year, mainly because of the loss of Jonathan Taylor at running back, who was amazing for 3 straight years. I mean, he had over 6,000 rushing yards in 3 years. That's just, he was incredible. And they don't have a guy, like Jonathan Taylor coming up in the wings. I mean, Garrett Groshek will see an increase in carries, of course, but he's certainly not the physical talent that Taylor was. And Nakia Watson kind of been a little inconsistent in his time, the carries that he was able to get. More carries would probably help that, but let's just say he's not Jonathan Taylor. So I'm a little concerned about that. Maybe their freshman, Jalen Berger, he could be a pretty good running back down the line, but huge shoes to fill that they can't quite fill.
Wisconsin hasn't had a bad running back since like before Ron.
No,
Dane.
I hear you. I'm not saying they won't have decent.
I'm just playing.
Jonathan Taylor was like special. I mean, he was
totally,
was even for a Wisconsin running back, he was different.
No doubt.
And they also lose Quintez Cephas, who's in the NFL right now, and he was kind of their big play wide receiver that really helped stretch the field, and so that was a big piece. And of course, we talked about Jack Cohn, probably out for probably the year, or at least for a while here. Graham Mertz will probably take over. So Mertz might be pretty good. So we'll see. He was a big time recruit. Then the defense, I mean, it's going to be good. It will be very good. They won't maybe quite generate the same level of pass rush without Zach Bond and like Chris Orr necessarily, but
those are 2 big losses.
Those are 2 huge losses, and they're a little concerned that they don't quite have the pieces to kind of necessarily make up for that. So they might not be quite as good, but they'll still have a very solid defense, and I'll kind of let you guys touch more on that. But again, I got to go under here. That's a lot.
Yeah, it is a lot to ask when you think they might win the division and play Ohio State. Yeah. But the defense, I'll talk a little bit more about that. It's going to be very, very good. It was good last year, and it's 17th in the country in returning production. Almost everybody from the D-line and secondary coming back. Those are kind of, I would argue, maybe the 2 most important units on a defense. Linebackers, we'll see. Those losses are big, but you still got Jack Sanborn, and guys are going to step up. Like Zach Bond, we didn't expect him to have such a huge year last year.
Wisconsin just turns him out.
Exactly. So they're going to be very good on that side of the ball, and we'll see on the offense. I think it'll be good because you got a great offensive line as always. You got Jake Ferguson at tight end. Skill talent, other than that, is remains to be seen. So, and you got a redshirt freshman at quarterback, even though Graham Mertz super highly recruited. So there's a high ceiling there, but I think the floor is also now lower than it was with Jack Cohn. So you got to think there's some game where he's going to make some freshman mistakes.
And Rattler.
Yes, but we've seen it with Spencer Rattler. So he might get tripped up in 1 or 2 games in the regular season. So they could still be really good. I think they will, and go 7-2. So I'm going to take the under.
I wholeheartedly agree with what you guys are saying. And people will talk about, it's not a big deal losing Jack Cohn because what does he do? But it can't help. And even though he's not leading a high flying passing offense, he was still the quarterback that almost won the Rose Bowl against Oregon. Like he's not awful. So we'll see. I mean, I'm really curious to see Mertz because he is one of the highest ranked recruits that Wisconsin has had before. So it'll be exciting to see how that pans out for them. But like you guys, I just don't trust them enough to go unbeaten in that kind of pool play or whatever before the 9th game.
Well, look what Cohn kind of did to replace Hornibrook. Like it was just like night and day. Mm-hmm. I mean, he had completely elevated that position. So
he was efficient. Okay, let's go on to tier 2. So we had Wisconsin on a tier of their own there, but close behind we have
Minnesota. They are their win total is being set at 6, with the under being the favorite there at -125. Michael, what do you think about Golden Gophers this year?
Well, they went 11-2 last year, which was amazing for
Mm-hmm.
PJ Fleck in year 3. And the offense looks really good again. Entire offensive line back. That's huge. 5 starters back there. You still got one of the best receivers in college football in Rashad Bateman. That was a huge opt back in there. Losing Tyler Johnson hurts, but you're always going to have losses. And then running back Mohamed Ibrahim leads a good stable of running backs. And that's going to make things easy on Tanner Morgan, who himself is probably the second best quarterback in the conference. So no problems on that offense. Big issue I see is I think the defense is going to take quite a big step back. 125th in returning production. Front 6 in particular lost a lot of good players. Carter Coughlin at defensive end seemed like he was there forever. 2 of their best linebackers. 5 of the top 6 players in terms of tackles for loss are gone. So
who's the biggest loss, Michael? Who's the biggest loss?
In the secondary, yeah, Antoine Winfield at safety.
Yeah.
That guy was one of the best safeties in the
country. He might have won them like single-handedly, like 2 games last year.
He did. I think he made game-winning picks, a couple of them early in the season, if I remember.
Yeah, I think
right.
It was like Fresno and then South Dakota State, maybe, or something.
But he did it all. He would like open field tackles, sacks, picks, stop the run.
He was unreal.
He was always around the ball.
Yeah, that's a massive loss.
He had 7 interceptions.
The secondary though is still kind of the strength of that defense. They've got some good corners, but yeah, I'm right there with you that loss is massive. So with that defensive drop off and just the fact that Minnesota last year was 6-1 in 1-score games, I'm going to count on some regression this year. So I'll lean under.
It's under for me as well. If you look at them just right now and ignore last year, there's a lot to like. The offense should be really great. Bateman, with Bateman being targeted more this year, that's going to open it up for a guy like Chris Autumn-Bell. I think he'll step up in the loss of Tyler Johnson. SP Plus has them rated as the 10th best offense going into the season right now. So I expect Tanner Morgan to have a really solid year. Like you, Michael, flex offense should be just fine. But I echo your concern on the defense. That front 7 really they couldn't get in the backfield a ton last year, and you would think it's not going to be a whole lot better. But then you compound the defensive concerns with the fact that they were just so fortunate that you mentioned, Michael. You said the 1-score games. They could have easily lost to start out the season to South Dakota State, Fresno State, and Georgia Southern. Instead, they went 3-0, but they easily could have lost all 3. It's just amazing how much the narrative of them turned because of once you started winning those games. So I just want to see how good Minnesota and Fleck can be when they actually have expectations going into a year.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is just those close wins, and then they far outperformed expectations. They have a lot of missing production coming back. I'm with you guys. I got to go under here on Minnesota. I feel like Tyler Johnson, maybe a bigger loss than maybe you let on a little bit. When you have a dynamic duo of Bateman and Johnson, I mean, what are defenses going to do? Like, you can't double both guys. I mean, it's, there's one's guarded, the other one's open. It's pretty hard to defend. When you take one away, not saying that Altman Bell isn't going to be a solid receiver, but he's not Tyler Johnson. So Tyler Johnson had 1,300 yards and 13 touchdowns. Like,
yeah, he has more yards.
You don't just replace it.
Like, he was pretty spectacular. That is definitely a loss. So even with all the other returning production, I don't think this offense will be quite as good as last year. With the loss of Johnson, and then the defense is going to take a big step back, and they get Michigan and Maryland from the East. So Michigan first game from the East at home. So that's a big game. Obviously, they win that one, then they get Maryland next, Illinois. So that'll be a very big first game for both those teams.
Yeah, they win that one, then suddenly they're of course a favorite to go over. Okay. Any more comments on Minnesota? We good to move on?
Let's do it.
Okay, then we are still here on tier 2, and the other team we have is Iowa, and their over-under is set at 4.5, but the over is a big favorite at -180. So what do you think, Trey?
I know it's the big favorite, but I also am going to go over. Ferentz, he always seems to have the Hawkeyes in the hunt, especially in the West Division. I know there was a lot of turmoil this offseason, and for a second, it kind of appeared like he might not even be the coach this year. But they've got a great system in place, kind of similar to Wisconsin. There's optimism on new quarterback Spencer Petras. Amir Smith-Marset, he's dangerous wide out. He's a great return man, great in the open field. Tyler Goodson seems to be like the next good Iowa running back. Here you go, Mike. They add Coy Cronk.
Yeah, we finally made it. Yeah.
There you go.
But then that's amazing because their offensive line's already really good. You had All-Americans Alaric Jackson and Tyler Linderbaum, their center. I mean, it is a ridiculously good
Alaric
line.
Jackson was out all of last year too. So, I mean, even though you lose Tristan Wirfs, you think that's huge. Well, you pretty much add Alaric Jackson back, so kind of makes up for it.
The main concerns I have with Iowa,
special.
He
okay,
was,
Ryan,
no,
just let me make a freaking point, Ryan. All right, I'm trying to come back from my Coy Cronk comment.
Look at the way Wirfs is playing in the NFL right now.
Yeah. Okay, but Alaric Jackson is very good too.
Yeah, I know
he's going to be
no
drafted.
Slouch. But like I said, the main concerns I have with the Hawkeyes is the offense. Can it be dynamic enough? And then can the defense replace their line? Really, they seem to always have a good defensive line, but there's a lot of production that they need to replace, and that's going to be, of course, the big key to this defense. And then they also had their outside linebacker Colbert opt out. He started 13 games, had 61 tackles. That's a tough blow, but it's kind of like I said with Wisconsin. They've got that system. They have the start of the year. They got Purdue, Northwestern, Michigan State, so they have an opportunity to develop and rack up some wins going into the rest of the conference slate.
Purdue, Iowa would be a good game. It should be.
I agree.
Mm-hmm. That should be a good one. I agree here. I'm going to take the over. I just have a hard time taking Iowa to be a losing team at this point, even though they do have some key losses. But plenty of production on the offense comes back. Nate Stanley does depart, but it wasn't like Nate Stanley was awesome. So exactly. they don't need a. When was the last time Iowa really had terrible QB play? I mean, they're always usually pretty solid.
Right.
So I'm not worried about that. I think Petras will be fine. On defense, of course, the loss of AJ Epinesa is big. But if you go back, like the year before, they lost a lot from the D line. I know they still had Golson and Epinesa coming back. So
yeah, because Epinesa didn't even start a couple years ago.
Yeah, exactly.
He played a ton, but
exactly. So they did lose some key pieces the year before, but now 2 years in a row losing some big pieces, maybe that kind of finally catches up to them a little bit. But I don't think they're going to be bad. There's no way that Iowa's defense is going to be bad. They'll be fine. Nick Niemann's back at linebacker. He's solid. Like I said, Chauncey Golson's back on that D line. He'll be fine. So I don't think I can choose them to have a losing record, even though the odds would be nice to take that plus money under. But
Ryan loves those plus money.
He loves
does.
those plus money odds. Plus money unders are even better. Now I got to go over.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. I'm going over. I think maybe you guys are a little bit underselling the offense, or at least just not making the enthusiastic case I'm going to make. I think this is the best supporting cast that an Iowa quarterback has had in a long time. Like
even with the Noah Fant, TJ Hawkinson days.
I mean, that was a good tight end duo, but I think I don't know, Amir Smith-Marset, Brandon Smith, Tyler Goodson, up and coming running back, great offensive line. I don't know. I'd have to go back and look at that roster, but I think it's as good as that. Like
a couple first round draft picks there is pretty good.
They still have Duncan. Is he still the kicker?
What's that?
Is Duncan still the kicker?
Keith Duncan, is that his name?
I don't remember.
We definitely give short shrift to kickers.
Yeah, we don't. We never mention kickers.
we should. Who's the?
But I'm with you though. On
Rutgers. They got what's his name? The great punter, Vorshak. I don't remember, but he was really good. Anyway, my point is, I think Petras has some good talent surrounding him. And defense, sure, it won't be as great as last year, but it'll still be good. So yeah, over's the pick. All right. Oh boy.
Oh man.
We're going down a tier right now.
Oh yeah, we are. Ugh.
Trey,
I'm just like I was waiting for the. Well, we've got Scott Frost, Nebraska, Their over-under is set at 3.5. The over is actually the favorite. I was waiting for the Scott Frost Praise the Lord music, but
I don't have that.
No, I know it's they don't deserve it right now. Ryan, our resident Nebraska homer, what are you thinking though about Big Red this year?
Well, I mean, the over's favored, so
I know.
Just gotta take the over if they're gonna.
Well, what about what happened to the plus money? Well, it's not.
I mean, I
There's
didn't
not
with
a plus
Iowa
money under.
Didn't. Yeah. True. This is not plus money. It's still minus 105, so it's still technically not plus.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll go over here with Nebraska. It's it's been well documented by me and other people that Nebraska did draw the toughest crossover schedule, which we knew it was going to happen. I mean, it was just obvious we were going to do that. I mean, called it before it even happened. Just like, yep, we're getting Ohio State, Penn State.
You're like, for sure, getting Penn State.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt in my mind. We made the Big Ten look bad. I guess I'm putting air quotes up right now, but like, there's just no, they wanted to punish us. Like, they ain't going to give us the benefit of the doubt after calling out the commissioner and stuff. So, but anyways, Ohio State, Penn State. So yeah, that's tough. Anyways, going the offense here. This is what made me a little bit optimistic about Nebraska this year. It's just, I'm not saying they're going to win 6 games or anything like that, but just better than last year. O-line returns every single person. They don't lose a single player on that group. So that should take a jump. And they were getting a lot better towards the end of last year. And like the center could actually hike the ball without it, with the quarterback catching it. Like, they were getting pretty good.
Nice.
They were getting pretty good. Yeah. That was actually a legitimate issue, by the way.
Yeah.
But anyways, that center, he's actually going to be pretty good. Like, he's a huge, talented guy. He's just couldn't snap the ball. Anyways, the all-line's going to be good. Running back, they don't have a ton of depth, but Dedrick Mills is this returning running back. He should have a pretty darn good year. He played really well towards the end. Aiden Martinez is the question. Can he return to freshman form, or is he going to kind of have that sophomore slump and stay with that slump? Wide receivers is a question mark, especially with I mean, they did have some talent coming in, but we're not sure. There's some status quos here that we're not quite sure about. Like Omar Manning was the number 1 overall wide receiver in JUCO, huge talent. Question about what's going on with his health and status. We're not quite sure, but we'll see. And then, but they do have Wan'Dale Robinson back. Of course, he's a great player. JD Spielman transferred. So it's, I don't know. I mean, if everything's okay, Omar ends up back, Wan'Dale's okay, well, that offense will be better. Defense is, I don't know. It's not going to be great, but it's probably about the same. They lost a lot from the D-line. They lost 3 D-line starters. They are replacing them with guys that have starting experience and have played a lot. And they do have a redshirt freshman coming in, Ty Robinson, was a huge recruit and is a big time kind of prospect. So he should be able to kind of help level things. It's just, and all the linebackers are back, and it's pretty much most of the secondary is too. So it is, Michael.
All the linebackers are back?
Yeah.
Oh. Mo Berry is back?
Oh, well, thank God he's gone.
Okay.
The guy was slow as molasses. All the linebackers that at least can run a little bit. No, yeah, I think this group is going to be about the same. I don't think they'll be really any worse or much better. They brought in a lot of JUCOs, some positive feedback on some of the JUCOs we've heard so far, especially up front, that Jordan Riley, former NC State player. So we'll see. I think they'll be about the same. It's just a question of, can the offense stay healthy and click a little better?
Yeah. I'm optimistic on Adrian Martinez this year. I guess cautiously optimistic, of course. He's going to be good in the running game. And I just think he's hopefully healthier this year. He was dealing with a shoulder and knee injury last year. So I was hoping that's part of what affected his play. Improved O-line, like you brought up. And the key thing is Nebraska's number 2 in the country in returning production offensively. So SP Plus projects them to be the 17th best offense. That might be a bit high for me, but the point is the potential is there to have a good offense. Hopefully things can click in year 3 for Frost. We'll see. You brought up the issues.
Friggin' healthy.
I know. We need Wan'Dale Robinson to stay healthy and take that big jump as a sophomore. People are expecting, and we'll see. Guys
needed another receiver or 2 to emerge. There's right. Young talent, but we'll see if anybody can emerge.
Exactly. But like you, defense, I have very little faith in. I mean, the secondary is good. You got Cam Taylor-Britt back there, kind of a versatile guy. DiCaprio Boodle at corner. Also,
Deontay Williams comes back. He missed all last year. at safety.
Yeah. So we'll see. This is not exactly growing praise. I am going over, but I didn't mention that. I mean, 3.5 it's a fair line, but I do think 4 and 5 is more likely than a 3 and 6.
Yeah, I'm reluctantly going over as well. Looking at last year, they lost 4 games by 7 or less. So even though it was kind of a disaster of a year, there were a lot of close games that they found a way to lose. And I think that the offense should take a step forward to kind of prevent some of those close losses. I'm encouraged, but of course, the wide receiver issue that you mentioned, if not all of them are healthy or not all of them play or opt in, then that's a concern. But I think the duo of Mills and Robinson could be really good with Adrian. And I've kind of been a team Adrian guy, but we'll see. He's got Luke McCaffrey. The other McCaffrey brothers kind of breathing, which they used them a decent amount in 4 games last year, kind of in Wildcat. And
kind of hope
we'll
they
see.
Push them out.
But I am optimistic.
Okay.
Who knows?
And by the way,
but
sorry.
No, my last point though is just as a fan, this is kind of how my dumb brain's going to work with this is they're going to start 1 and 3. And I'm going to be disappointed, even though I know going into the season, they're probably going to be 1 and 3 because they got Ohio State, Wisconsin, and Penn State in 3 of their first games. They got Northwestern in there, which I'm not saying they'll
kind of hope for 1 and 3, honestly.
I know, but I'm looking at it like, okay, we're going to be 1 and 3. When the season happens, they're going to start 1 and 3, and I'm going to be disappointed by it, even though I know it. But then my dumb brain's going to trick myself, and we're going to finish the season fairly well, similar to a couple years ago. And then I'm going to trick myself into 2021 thinking that'll be the year. And I'm just going to be back in the cycle like every couple of years.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
It's rough. We text, of course, about Nebraska, and it seems like every bit of news that comes out just for the last couple of years is bad. Someone's transferring away, or I don't know. But
it's been
injury there.
Injuries, yeah.
But the reason why I think I'm going to give them the 4, they might be able to win that 4th, is if they go 3 and 5, in the West, or they'll probably play one of maybe those 3 worst teams. So it's like Michigan State, Rutgers, or Maryland. They might get one of those teams as their 9th game. So probably that's where I think like that tier might have an advantage over the East, where the East might be a little weaker at that kind of like that 5 spot.
Right.
The balance of the West is just better. So.
Can I toot my own horn for a second here? Establish some credibility. I believe I am 4-0 picking over-unders on Nebraska and USC, my 2 favorite teams since we've started the podcast. So,
wow.
Yes, and that's typically been under. So, yeah. I'm not always
on the pulse.
We've done 2 full seasons. Is that what it's been?
Well, we've done 3 full seasons, but the first season we did a podcast, we didn't pick over-unders because we started right before the season.
Boy, I should go back and look. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure I took over on
Nebraska. You've gone over on Nebraska both times. Hasn't worked out. So,
shit. What about USC? Huh?
I don't know.
Yeah. Anyways.
Okay. We move on to number 5 in the Big Ten West.
You got it. We got the Purdue Boilermakers. Their win total set at 3.5 as well. Except their over is a bigger favorite than Nebraska's. Theirs is set at -180. So Trey, what do you think? Jeff Brom's group?
No,
Michael. What do you think of Jeff Brom's group?
Oh, Michael's going to take the lead on this one.
I want to take the lead here. My boy Jeff Brom.
Yeah.
So and by the way, they're on the same tier as Nebraska. We have them here. I am high on Purdue this year. Of course, I love Jeff Brom. I still think he's a really good coach. I give him a pass last year. They had so many important injuries on both sides of the ball. You can kind of just almost throw away that year. On offense, not sure who's going to be the quarterback. I think Jack Plummer's probably the favorite. Played as a freshman last year. But they've also got Aiden O'Connell or the grad transfer Austin Burton from UCLA. Whoever it is, I think they're going to have a great receiving core. Trey talked about that earlier with Rondell Moore and David Bell. And the running game has nowhere to go but up this year. They had 2.9 yards per carry. So hopefully getting 4 or 5 starters on the O-line will help. Defense brings in Bob Diaco as defensive coordinator.
Ooh.
I still don't think it's going to be good, but it should be better. George Karlaftis is one of the best D linemen in the country. As a true freshman last year, he had 17 tackles for loss. He's just a beast. Lorenzo Neal, their star nose tackle, missed all of last year. He's back. So hopefully that defensive front will kind of shore things up for the entire defense this year. And the best part is they get Rutgers from the East and, a pretty winnable game against Indiana. Like that's a pretty good draw overall, getting Rutgers and Indiana. So I really like Rutgers. I mean, not Rutgers. I really like Purdue. I love Jeff Brom. I'm going over, and I'm going to make it my lock.
All right. Wow.
All right. Now Trey.
Wow.
Now it's your turn.
I'm doing the exact same over, and it's going to be my lock as well.
Ooh.
I love Purdue. I like you said, like you have talked about in the last couple of years, you love Jeff Brom. I have a lot of faith in Jeff Brom. Even with last year, you mentioned all the injuries. Like it literally became almost a comedy show where like every week it was like, who did Purdue lose this week? Yet their offense was still putting up some pretty good numbers. They obviously the losses on defense really cost them because they just couldn't really stop much at all. But and you also remember going into last year, there were some expectations and they kind of fell flat, of course. I think you're kind of able to buy low this year. And I think with that duo, a receiver should be great. Defense, like you said, Diaco could at least make them at least more competent. Another guy you didn't mention was a linebacker, Derek Barnes. He's another good piece returning. I don't think they're going to get gashed as much as they did last year. And it should at least help out what should be a great offense. So that's why I'm also laying out the over.
Wow. Yeah. Well, Purdue better go over here because I am also going to take Purdue over, and I am also going to make them my lock.
That's crazy. We had 14 teams.
We did not discuss this before.
No, we did not. 14 teams. We all agreed over on Purdue here.
Well, so that's the lock of the century under.
Yeah. You guys might as well just go better right now.
No, that's great.
It's going to happen. Yeah. there's so many good things to think about here. And I think obviously the offense can be really good with all the weapons that they have. So that's going to improve. But the reason why I'm excited is just because of Mike already mentioned George Karlaftis. But then Lorenzo Neal coming back. He's a big dude on the inside that's a run stuffing D tackle that they desperately missed. If you got Lorenzo Neal and George Karlaftis there, your D line's not going to be bad. Like it's going to be fine. You're going to stop some folks. You're going to cause some trouble. You got a guy that can rush the passer. You got a guy that can stop the run. They're going to be much better as long as those guys stay healthy. I mean, I don't like Diaco as a defensive coordinator. We had him at Nebraska for a year, and it was an absolute train wreck. But we didn't have George Karlaftis, so that's kind of an issue.
I think he's replacing Nick Holt. I want to say it was the last D coordinator, and I wasn't a big fan of him either. So.
Yeah, I mean, they were already horrible, but just with some of the pieces coming back, they're gonna be better. A couple of nice pieces on the D line. So Purdue, they're being undervalued right here. I really are. So,
and they're recruiting very well the last couple of years. So maybe that's gonna
25-ish,
be showing up.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Everyone's off the Jeff Brom bandwagon. Everyone is.
I know one year and they're just kind of forgot. Like he had the huge offers before. People wanted to take him away from Purdue.
Yeah. And he stayed. He was, he could have gone to Louisville, but it seems like he has some confidence in what he's building. So we'll see if he turns out correct. But let's get to our next tier. Tier 4 starts with Northwestern, and their over-under is 4.5. Under is a slight favorite. Trey, what do you think here?
This to me was kind of the biggest surprise over-under number to me out of the Big Ten. I didn't think it would be this high. I'm going to take the under. Of the major conference teams, or I guess even nationally, they were one of the worst offensive teams last year. It was very difficult to watch. But I really like Peyton Ramsey. He's coming into the system as a transfer from Indiana. But I mean, how much can he really improve the unit? That remains to be seen. There is some pieces, though. The line shouldn't be that bad. Isaiah Bowser is a pretty solid running back. But they only averaged less than 14 points a game in conference. So
Yeah.
They have the
and they lose
potential.
their best offensive lineman, Rashawn Slater, to opt out.
Yeah.
That's
That's
a big
right.
loss.
It's like a potential
Yeah.
first rounder or something. He's
That doesn't
big
help. But I think there is, like, at least just given how bad they were, there's the potential to be one of the more improved teams if the offense shows a pulse. I'm not confident it can, but there is that little bit more of upside just because they made some wholesale changes and including the quarterback. But I just kind of need to see it to believe it. But they make their hay on defense. If I have to be positive about Northwestern, it's their defense. In fact, I think it's the biggest disparity of a team in terms of offense and defense in the country. SP Plus kind of backs that up. They have them rated as the 117th offense, but the fifth defense. Fifth defense seems a little aggressive for me,
generous,
but they should, no matter what, they're going to be really good. They return back a ton of starters, including one of the best linebackers in the conference, Patty Fisher. I feel like he's been there forever.
Blake Gallagher right there with him.
Yeah, Blake Gallagher.
Yeah. They have a favorable schedule by Big Ten standards, but they have to go 5-4 to beat me after going 1-8 in conference last year. I'm just not quite ready to buy Northwestern.
Yeah, that's me too. I got to take the under here. We're agreeing a lot.
We're agreeing on every team.
It's just, this line, some of these lines are pretty high.
In the West, yeah.
In the West, yeah.
Yeah, in the West. So this, 5-4 after you just won one game and their offense is horrible. That's a tall order. And I think the loss of Rashawn Slater is massive. I mean, Northwestern has really struggled on offensive line play a lot lately, and when you have a guy like that, you can't lose him if you're at a school like Northwestern. So then if you, I do like Ramsey. I'll say he's good. He'll tough kid. He can run a little bit. So their offense will be a little better. I would be surprised if it wasn't. Hard not to be. But defense, it's good. But all those guys are, I don't think they're going to be any better than they were. They might regress just a tiny bit. They lose Joe Gaziano from that defensive line. He's in the NFL right now. Alex Miller also, he had a good kind of senior year there. So couple key losses from that D line kind of help things out. But back seven will be good for sure. I just overall they don't have weapons on offense to stretch the field. It's the same guys. So receivers like Riley Lease is their best receiver, and he's not very good. And the running backs they're okay, but Bowser, he like runs forward and just like bounces around. He's not like a playmaker. I don't see much. The defense will keep them in games. They'll keep it low scoring. Maybe they can win some close ones and get 3-4, but 5 is asking a lot.
Yeah. So to put a number to their offense last year, another one, they were dead last in the country in yards per pass attempt. What take a guess at what they were? How many yards per pass attempt?
4.7.
5.
4.5. So very good guess, Ryan.
Ooh.
So 4.5 is very, very bad. The second the 129th team in yards per pass attempt was 5.0. That's quite a difference.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, that'll get better, obviously. But Peyton Ramsey, I mean, he was very good last year under Kalen DeBoer. The years couple prior as a passer, I mean, he could still run a little bit, but I don't know. I just think with no weapons, it's going to be tough for him. Like you said, it's the same guys back. I mean, they're number 1 in the country in returning production. That's a good thing. They'll be better. They'll be one of the most improved teams, I'm sure.
Did they count Slater loss on that?
That doesn't count that, so maybe that drops him a little bit, but
like value as far as like he's a really good player.
True. But the point is they bring back a ton of guys.
It's true. Yeah.
And they got a gift with Maryland and Michigan State as their 2 crossovers, so that gives them a chance here. But yeah, I think the offense will still suck, so I'm going under.
Sorry.
All right.
Sorry, yeah. I mean, there's people that like them. There's people liking to break out. I mean, if you look before last year, they were winning 9-10 games.
Oh yeah.
So,
I don't expect them to win 1 or 2. That's for sure.
No, yeah.
And finally, our last team in the Big Ten West is Illinois. Their over-under is set at 3, with the over being the slight favorite. Ryan, what do you see with the Illini?
Yeah, this is a tough one here. Illinois, it's kind of hard to not look at last year and, you think, oh, they made a bowl game. But I'm going to go under here, even though that's pretty darn low. I'm going the under on them. They surprised everybody, of course. They made it by the skin of their teeth to a bowl game. they do return a good amount of production on offense. Brandon Peters, former Michigan quarterback, he's back for his senior year. He was solid. He made some good plays for him last year. And leading receiver and former USC transfer Josh Imatorbhebhe he's back, and he's a good receiver. They got 4 starters back on that line. Mike Epstein returns at running back. He missed essentially all of last year with an injury. They do lose Reggie Corbin, who was he was a good running back, but getting Epstein back kind of helps offset that one a little bit. So I think the offense should probably improve a touch. It's pretty much the same dude, but I think they'll be a little bit better. Defense, that's probably the area that I think they're going to regress a bit, mainly because I don't think they can force as many turnovers as they did last year. That's the tough thing. They were tied for second in the nation in takeaways per game, so that's hard to keep up every year. Although I will say Lovie Smith does put emphasis on that. But another one of the main reasons why they were so good at forcing turnovers is because they had some good pressure from that D line. Most notably, I'm going to butcher his name, Oluwale Batiku.
No, that's pretty good. Wole Batiku, yeah.
Yeah. He had 9 sacks. So
former USC Trojan.
Exactly, another former USC guy. He had 9 sacks last year. That was
why couldn't USC get anything out of him?
I know, seriously. Same with Imatorbhebhe. But you're stacked at receiver, so you didn't really need it.
Yeah, we're fine there,
but yeah, no, I know. It's so he's gone. So is the rest of the D line. And they were already 103rd in the nation against the run, so could be even worse this year. So whatever gains I think the offense will make, it's going to be definitely negated by the drop of that defense, and then the turnover margin is going to fall back to kind of the median.
Yeah.
So give me the under.
Yeah, I'm going under too, even though I get that it seems low. I mean, I think 3-6 is the most likely record. I think it's set correctly, but if I had to pick, I'm going under. Just because I think the improvement last year was a little bit overstated, and in large part because of that turnover margin. Weirdly, Lovie Smith teams, despite his reputation, have been consistently horrible in turnover margin, like almost to a degree that you think, wow, is that sustainable? And I guess it wasn't. I guess they were very good last year.
Tampa 2.
What's that?
Tampa 2.
Yeah, I think it's going to regress, like you said. Quite
hard not to when you're second in the nation.
Yeah. And then I think, the grad transfer market has definitely been helping him out the last couple of years. And, he'll every once in a while get a good recruit in there. So they're better than they were a few years ago. But like I said, the metrics last year had them worse than their actual record. I mean, they lost to Eastern Michigan, I think, last year. They barely beat UConn. Like, not sure they were really that great last year. So that's why I'm going under.
Clean sweep. I'm going under as well. That miracle win over Wisconsin last year, it bought Lovie Smith some time. But personally, I think it's just masking a bad team. And Brandon Peters, he only completed 55% of his passes, threw 8 picks. I mean, there's no reason he can't take a next step, but it wasn't like a lights out.
He's not amazing.
Yeah.
And then just the way they finished last year, they lost 3 games really ugly to Iowa, a really bad Northwestern team. It was their only win in conference, and then to Cal in the bowl game. But they didn't look good in any of those. The one, I guess, if I did have to give them a positive on defense, I really like Jake Hansen at linebacker, Sidney Brown at safety. There's some pieces that can help hopefully generate some turnovers for them, but I'm just not buying into Lovie and the Illini. Gladly eat crow if they go over, but I'm not seeing it.
Okay. Let's take a look at our tiers here then in the Big Ten West. We've got a tier of their own. We had Wisconsin number 1. We've got on tier 2, Minnesota and Iowa. Tier 3, Nebraska and Purdue. And tier 4, Northwestern and Illinois. So what are you guys' thoughts on those tiers?
Trey, what do you think?
I agree. I think I really like Wisconsin this year. I think they're the most balanced team, and they are kind of the head honcho of the West. Yeah, I think because really, like to Ryan's point earlier, 2 through maybe 5 or 6, I could see in any order.
Yeah. I agree with Wisconsin at 1, and I also agree with tier 2 having Minnesota, Iowa above the rest of the 4. But I think the bottom 4, I think you could just put them all in one tier. Honestly, like Nebraska, Purdue, Northwestern, Illinois. I think they could all just intertwine, and I wouldn't be surprised. I don't see there's much of a gap between, Northwestern and Purdue and Illinois and Nebraska. It's just they were all already close last year. All those teams like beat up on each other.
Yeah, and especially when you talk about where they're actually going to finish, because right now we're ranking them in terms of team strength, kind of ignoring schedule. But when you look at Nebraska, they might be worse than some of those teams behind them anyway. But even if they aren't, even if they're better with Penn State and Ohio State, they could very easily finish. I mean, they could finish last in the
right.
Yeah, they really could. There wouldn't be that surprising, unfortunately.
Yeah, you could be computer good, but standings bad.
Right,
Yep.
Exactly. Well put, Trey. Computer good, standings bad. I like that.
We're
going
in
to
the
use
simplest
that as a term
terms
on this show. I think Illinois last year was computer bad, standings good.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, totally.
Okay. Let's recap these over-unders. Wow. Okay. So if you're watching on YouTube, you can see a lot of agreement here. In the Big Ten East, we all were under Indiana 5 wins. We were all over Michigan State 2.5 wins, and we were all under on Maryland at 2 wins. And in the West, we agreed on every single one.
That's crazy.
That is insane. I'm not even going to go through them. We just agreed on all of them,
and we all went
lock on Purdue 3.5 wins.
That is unbelievable. And we all, I guess, we follow the Big Ten a lot, so we all, I guess, have similar opinions.
Yeah, true.
Guess so. I mean, that's crazy. Anyway, I mean, I know some of them were favorites. We tended to go with the favorites.
But the way the West kind of shook out, well, that's the thing, too, is some of these over-unders, if they would have been a half game different, I would have really thought twice on a couple of them. And then we would have had some different opinions, I think.
Yeah, they kind of made it easy with so much these. They had some pretty big, large favorites, So
yeah, and just the plus money, just in some cases, just wasn't enough for me to go the other way.
Exactly.
No. Okay. There you have it. All right. Well, let's move on to our next segment. This is going to be our longest episode ever, and I'm pumped about it. I hope,
baby,
people are enjoying the content.
They can split it into 2 pods on their own. Like I'll listen to the first Big Ten East, and then Big Ten West later.
Very true. Okay, let's get to the hot seat. We're going to put Ryan on the hot seat.
All right.
Okay, so first question, Ryan, is with Jonathan Taylor and J.K. Dobbins gone, who do you think will take over and lead the Big Ten in rushing?
Well, looking back at last year, surprisingly, I'll ask you guys, this is kind of a trivia question for you. How many rushers do you think rushed for over 1,000 yards in the Big Ten?
First of all, you're on the hot seat. We don't answer the questions, but I'll allow it, I guess.
Yeah.
1,000? I don't know, dude. 6? I'm just throwing out a number.
Trey, what's your guess?
4. I have no idea.
Ooh, okay. 3. Only 3 players.
Okay.
14. Made it. Isn't that seems a little low?
That's low for sure.
2 of them made 2,000.
Yeah.
J.K. Dobbins and Jonathan Taylor. They're gone. And then the other guy was blanking.
What team?
Blanking.
Oh,
Minnesota, Rodney Smith. There it is.
The seat was too hot for Ryan.
Yeah,
yeah, it's true. Anyways,
he can't even answer his own question.
So what do you think about people coming back this year? Who I think I'm not going to go with Ohio State. I think Trey Sermon and Master T will probably kind of split up carries a little bit. That's not going to be a lead back like J.K. Dobbins necessarily. Same thing with Penn State. Journey Brown's good, but they got some other deep, talented players that are got to see the field. Minnesota kind of likes to do that. I know Ibrahim is kind of a leader, but they like to kind of split it up. Elijah Collins, Michigan State, might be the lead back, but the offense is going to be bad. So, I was kind of going through and, believe it or not, I landed on Nebraska's Dedrick Mills. He finished 8th.
Oh, I believe it. Yeah. I believe that you did.
You believe that I did.
Shocking.
He finished 8th in the conference in rushing last year. It's not like it's that bad. And then he'll no doubt be the lead back. Like Mo Washington is gone. There's freshmen behind him. He is the clear-cut guy that's going to get a lot of the carries on a team that should be able to run the ball pretty solid. Behind an offensive line, returns every single person. And the end last year is what has me encouraged. He finished the year really, really well. 347 yards last 3 games. And 2 of those were against Wisconsin and Iowa. And he put up like 188 against a very good Wisconsin defense. So I'm going to say Dedrick Mills should have a big year.
Okay. Yards per carry, I'll take Trey Sermon. That's
that's a different ball game.
All right, moving on. Going strictly off of conference games from last year, which team do you think will make the biggest jump in total wins? And then on the opposite, who's going to have the biggest drop off?
Sure. Biggest jump forward, it kind of helps picking somebody from the bottom. They have some room to grow. I'm going to go Northwestern. Obviously, they went 1-8 in conference last year. I think they can do a lot better than that. And if things go right with Peyton Ramsey, he does kind of come in. It's like, wow, he's certainly a lot better than they had last year. It's going to help that offense, and the defense will be solid. I think they're good enough to get to 5 games. Like, it's possible. I don't think they will, but I could see them going to, 3, possibly 4. It's not unrealistic. Remember, 2 years ago, they were in the conference title game. So Pat Fitzgerald sometimes knows how to work magic. So I'll say them as far as biggest jump. Biggest drop off, that was a harder question in my eyes, but I don't see any team like just drastically going down. But if I had to pick one, I'm going with Minnesota. We kind of already touched on it. They won 7 conference games last year. So many close games. And I think it's fair to say that they weren't quite as good as their record. Take away a big time playmaker, kind of luck. I could see them kind of falling back with a weaker defense.
Okay. Who is your breakout star for the Big Ten?
I'm gonna go to the Buckeyes. No.
Wandale Robinson.
No. I'm gonna go a Buckeye here.
Okay.
Wide receiver Garrett Wilson. He, as a freshman last year, he had 430 yards and 5 touchdowns. So he's on the cusp of already breaking out. But this year, I just think with Benjamin Victor, KJ Hill gone, he is just gonna set the world on fire. He's gonna be one of Justin Fields' favorite targets. Him and Olave are just gonna dominate out there.
Big play Olave.
Yeah, big play Olave. I mean, he's going to shine. He was a former 5-star, big time recruit. He's got all the talent that you want. He's going to go off. So give me Garrett Wilson.
All right. Speaking of Nebraska again with Ryan, the Scott Frost era is off to a rough start. How many wins this season would have you totally 100% convinced that he's going to turn us around?
Totally 100% convinced. I would have to go with 5. If he has a winning record.
You're 100% convinced he goes 5-4. You're like, oh,
I would feel very
we're going to be back.
Oh, I would feel very good if we won 5 games.
Okay.
I'd be like, okay, with Ohio State, Penn State on the schedule, the other games, I'd feel really, really good about what we're doing if we do that. Because, any other year we would, 5-4 with this schedule would mean 8-4, maybe 9 and type of 3 year with if we had a full schedule. So yeah, I would feel confident in the direction where we're going.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that would be a very good year. Okay. Stop playing music. All right. Championship picks time. Let's see who we got here. Are we all going to agree again? Oh, what do you know?
Shocking. Oh man.
Watching on YouTube. We've all got Ohio State over Wisconsin.
Too easy. That one's too easy. It's like,
well, that's the thing.
Okay.
I tried to think of how could I go bold. For a second, I thought about Penn State in the East, but I didn't think Ohio State's head and shoulders. And then the Big Ten West, the only team I have the utmost confidence in is Wisconsin.
I could have gone Iowa. I thought about Iowa.
True.
I like if Spencer Petras can be as good as Nate Stanley with the offense around him, and defense is always good. They've certainly got a chance. But yeah, Wisconsin I do think is, like I said, deservedly a tier above. It's as long as Graham Mertz. I mean, Graham Mertz has a ton of potential too. That's the thing. He could be really good. He could, untap the potential of that offense.
Yeah, just don't screw it up.
Yeah,
true.
Okay, and we're all obviously all taking Ohio State to beat Wisconsin in that title game.
Yeah, real boring.
Yes, we are.
Hard to pick against them. Okay. Let's move on, and mercifully, maybe. I mean, if you're listening still, you love us. So this is great. We can get a little loosey-goosey in this questionable finish. Scott Frost seemed like a can't-miss hire. We bring him up again. So far, it has not gone well. Name a hire in any sport that you thought was a home run, but ended up not working out.
Yeah, this is a tough one to think about here when you got all these potential things. I'm gonna go with wow, dang it, Michael. I didn't even think about it until right now. But I was gonna go with the same guy that you were bringing up.
You're also going Shaka Smart?
Yeah.
How are we everyone saying the same thing?
I thought about him too.
Like I just thought that was gonna be a surefire thing. He's gonna kill it at Texas. That was just for sure.
That's crazy. Yeah.
Wow.
I went the same way. I mean, and Texas, like they've got a really good recent history in basketball. Like Rick Barnes was great.
I know.
Yeah.
Smart just hasn't done it.
It's funny because Michael, I figured you would say him, so I actually added in college football a few years back. Rick Neuheisel went to UCLA. He did great at Colorado, did pretty good at Washington, won a Rose Bowl. I figured going to his alma mater at UCLA, he could get them back to kind of that Cade McNown Rose Bowl level, but he just flamed out.
I'll give you another one at UCLA, Chip Kelly.
Ooh. Yeah.
I mean, we'll see. Still got time, but yeah, not looking good. Okay, next question. Name something as likely as Rutgers winning the conference this year.
I'm going to stick with football, and if you guys watch the pro game, I would say the Jets winning the Super Bowl. Ooh. They've just been a total dumpster fire. Adam Gase is just completely in over his head. He's quote unquote an offensive genius. Not quite. He seems to have lost the team. A lot of injuries to deal with. They're a disaster.
All right. I'm going to say it's as likely as Ryan picking an under on Nebraska's win total.
Hey now. Come on.
Well, I'm saying you're now 3 for 3 picking overs in 3 years.
Michael and I's lock. That's Michael and I's lock.
Yeah. At least I'm not saying they're going to win the title or anything.
No, you are. I will say, like, you lean over, but you're realistic. Like,
I'm like, oh, if
this is the most, although I'm a little worried, this is the most pessimistic you've been.
It is.
Yeah, I guess. I think we were all pretty positive.
Everyone was optimistic last year. I know some people. I mean, Trey and I obviously we took the under, so we thought maybe the market was a little too high. But like everyone thought they were going to be much better.
Yeah. And then going into the first year, Scott Frost, who knows? But anyways, yeah, I always think they're going to go over by just the half. Like it's 3.5. Okay, I think they can get to 4. Surpass expectations at 10.
We're with you this year.
Yeah. If we went 4, it's whatever. But anyways, what was the question?
Oh my God.
Something as likely as Rutgers winning the conference.
Ryan's rambling.
I'm going to say as likely as the Seattle Seahawks losing a close game. They just do not, man.
Russell Wilson.
It's so fun. I mean, we're Seahawks fans. We lived there for 10 years. Like, it's so fun to watch that team. Like, Russell's amazing.
He's incredible.
Okay. Last question of the podcast. Give me a bold prediction about the Big Ten that you don't even totally believe. I will get us started here. Purdue is going to win its last 5 games of the season. So actually make it 6. I'll include that, game against the team from the East. So you got, maybe it'll take a few games for them to settle in at quarterback. They could play multiple quarterbacks. We'll see. Bob Diaco's got to install that defense. But last 5 games of the season, they got Northwestern, at Minnesota, Rutgers, Nebraska, and at Indiana. Jeff Brom's going to do it.
Very doable.
You say Nebraska in there?
Nah.
I've made I've made some similar predictions before, but I'm going to say Ohio State's going to win every game by double digits.
Oh.
I did this with Alabama a couple years ago, and that I was right somehow. I know that's a good pick. They play at Penn State. That'll be tough to do, but most teams always have that one random game, the good teams, where they gives them a bunch of fits. But I don't know. Maybe I'm just too high on Ohio State this year. So
no, that's reasonable.
Yeah, Michael, what's your favorite metric as far as ratings on like divisions and stuff? Like, does Massey Peabody have that as far as like what's the best divisions and stuff?
Oh, Massey Peabody doesn't, and they're not even doing it this year. SP Plus, I mean, he doesn't publish them, but you could take his ratings and figure it out. So I get Sagarin, which is not my favorite rating system, but at least they rank the divisions and conferences.
Okay, so mine is that I believe that the Big Ten West will be superior in the ratings than the Big Ten East will be.
Okay. Yeah, you got that bottom tier. Drag it down.
Going to separate them. There's no bad teams in the West.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for listening to the College Football Bros podcast. If you enjoy the show, which I would hope you do after listening for over an hour and a half, please give us a 5-star review. Support us on Patreon. That's the best way you can help us out. We put a lot of work in this show and we enjoy doing it, but it does help to have Patreon to offset some of the costs and also, give us a little pizza money. So really appreciate that, and see you next time.
You've been listening to the College Football Bros. If you have any questions for the next podcast, email them to collegefootballbros@gmail.com. To keep up with the brothers on social media, like them on Facebook at College Football Bros, follow them on Instagram at College Football Bros, and for their commentary on Saturdays, follow them on Twitter at CFB Bros. Thanks for listening.